and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the insipid and puerile forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Friday. It is going to be kind of a busy program today. I got a lot of different things happening. At the top of the hour, we're actually going to talk to Jimmy Skogard. Yeah, I know. But there's a few things that we've got to iron out with him, so he'll be here at 9 o'clock. And then at 9:15, we'll have one of the candidates for Sheridan County Clerk in here, Christine Temple. And there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about with Ogden Driscoll. So we're going to have a full program today. Eventually, when we get rolling here, I'll turn the phones on and we'll do Open Line Friday. So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on. And, plenty to get to. So first thing, though, top story, and I don't even know, really, if this is a top story or not, but Frank Chapman has dropped out of the U.S. House race.
Bye.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I didn't foresee him really going too far in the race.
I do appreciate that he was able to read the tea leaves pretty quickly and realize that it was just causing him issues.
But I can say this, Ken, out of down at our High Plains debate, out of all the candidates, and we'll take Chuck out of the mix because he's always really substantive. But I think that Frank Chapman, he had some really insightful comments, and he really did try to take the questions a level deeper than some of the other, the normal everyday political bullcrap rhetoric that you hear. And so, I appreciated his comments, but I don't think that he ever really had too much of a chance.
Maybe this sounds a little elitist, even from me, but I have a hard time when somebody comes from nowhere and wants to run for U.S. Senate, for example.
Well, there's several of those.
Yeah. I don't say that we only pick amongst ourselves, but there is a lot of truth to you have to have had a little bit of a track record, and people across the state have to know who you are.
Well, I think that's the nature of our electorate.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a number of candidates in the race like that, okay? Mm-hmm. David Geralt, I personally like David.
Yeah.
He hangs out with the common sense Republicans of Wyoming, which I have some questions about. Kevin Christensen is another one. He's been pretty vocal, but, I mean, he's still a relative unknown. Hasn't ever really done anything with the Republican Party that I'm aware of. And Frank Chapman's in that group, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you want to run in Wyoming politics, you actually have to kind of be involved a little bit.
And when I say that same thing, I'm not saying they're not perfectly good people.
No, but on the other hand,
but if you're going to run for a statewide office like that, people need to know a little bit about who you are. And it's really hard to try to do that education in the short window where people are paying attention.
Now, I suppose if you're running, if you start maybe 2 years in advance, maybe you're running for governor or something, and you're a really good candidate, good on your feet, excellent credentials, I think that a relative unknown can win there. We've got lots of examples of
Well,
relative unknowns at the national level. There's no reason that same thing can't apply at the state
Brent
level.
Brent Bien is a good example of that. He ran last time for governor virtually as an unknown. He did pretty well for that.
Well, he got, what was it, 50,000 votes, 48,000,
Yeah,
something like that?
I'm not sure.
I mean, a respectable number.
Yeah, but he has worked virtually every day since then to get to this point.
Yeah, and the difference, too, I think, is that Brent spent a lot of time going to Republican events. If there was something that he could get to, be it a central committee meeting, or even if he was in a community when they happened to have a meeting, he would show up.
Well, he did that here in Sheridan for
Long time.
long time.
Long
yeah.
time. So, but I think that it still holds true that you've got to have some sort of involvement somewhere.
There's another aspect of it too, is you have to have developed a number of relationships to staff a governor's office.
No,
It requires a lot of people, and you kind of see the same thing when you look at Trump's first term. He goes in there and he builds his cabinet largely from people that were recommended to him because that wasn't his bailiwick. He hadn't been in there.
Right.
And he was an outsider, and that's true for a governor as well. You've got to come in. You've got to surround yourself with the right people, or the swamp will just eat you alive.
Well, and so part of the difficulty that I think that Brent would have is that should he win the election, there are so many positions that he's going to have to fill, and frankly,
Exactly what
we just don't have the people. And I'm sure the top level positions, he's already got people picked out for that. Should he win, but what about the zillions of other boards that he's got to appoint people to? Well, at some level, you're just going to have to go with it.
Yeah.
And say, okay, well, you guys say that he's good. Let's go with it, and we'll find out. But
you're going to make some mistakes.
Yeah. And it's no different. If you're involved in business, if you run your own business, you're going to have. My dad always said, you know what? I've had some good hires and I've had some bad hires, but I've had some great fires. And his point being is that, if you're running a business and you have several employees, sometimes you got to listen to management. Okay, you guys say that he's good. This is on you if he turns out bad. And then, if the guy does good, great, keep him. If not, well, within 90 days you say, well, it's just not working out and you got to go down the road. And I think that any conservative that's going to get elected to the governor's race or the governor's office or anything like that, I mean, it is going to have the same sort of hurdles. I mean, at some level, you're going to have to break a few eggs along the way. Now, Frank Chapman, I would like to see him, get more involved. He does live in Teton County, and Lord knows there's problems with the Republican Party there. They tried to excommunicate people out of the party for a constitutionally protected exercise of free speech. So there's problems there. So, maybe Frank gets involved in the local party. Maybe he starts attending statewide events. There's the next state central committee meeting is in Thane. That's not
Maybe
very
he
far
takes
away.
Liz Storer out for us.
Yeah, oh man, I don't know if he lives in her district or not. But
I don't know.
That's a good question though. Hey Frank, if you're listening, do you live in Liz Stoer's district, and can you take her out for us? We'd really appreciate all of that. So anyway, he's dropped out of the race, and I think that there are a number of people that need to drop out as well. Dennis Beitman, he just doesn't have the cash. He's not campaigning. He's not going to win. David Geralt, Kevin Christensen, I think you might put him in there. And really, I think the race is going to boil down to Chuck and Steve Freeze, and I don't even think Reed Reisner is in this one. I don't think that he's going to even put up any sort of a fight. So, hey, if you're down in the polls, if you know you're not going to win, get the heck out. Save your money. Save all of us some irritation, and just move on. All right, so I went ahead and opened up the phone lines because it is.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's Open Line Friday. That's right, my friends. Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics. This is the day where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. You see, normally during the week, like this week, I didn't really have the phone lines open at all. And so you just kind of had to roll with whatever was on my mind, which it is my show. So, that's kind of how we work things. But not on Friday. Not on Friday at all. If there's something that's on your mind that you've been wanting to talk to me about, the number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Whatever's been rolling around in that head of yours, well, go ahead and give me a call. One more time, that phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. All right, so let's see here. Where do we want to go next? You know what? Let's go to the Wyoming GOP again. So now, Ken, tell me if this prediction, actually it wasn't a prediction, but tell me if I wasn't right on the money about this one. Wyoming GOP endorses candidates ahead of primary election, but says that it won't spend party funds backing endorsees. So in other words, this is exactly what I thought they should do. That state law prevents a political party from spending money during a primary campaign. Now here's the problem. If you are going to, let's say that you're the state GOP and you're going to endorse candidates, right? You got a whole list and you're going to figure out who you like and who you don't like. Well, at some level, you're going to spend cash on that, whether it's through your website or maybe it's a Zoom meeting that you've arranged so everybody across the state can get together and talk about these things. But at some level, you're going to spend cash. And the state law says directly or indirectly. So maybe if you're publishing results on the website or on your social media account or whatever, somewhere along the line, you're going to be spending cash, which kind of brings up the insidious, what I think is the insidious nature of that law in Wyoming statutes, that you can't spend any money. And I think that it was intentionally written that way to prevent the party from really acting like a political party. Personally, I see no problem with calling out candidates who claim to be Republican, but who are clearly not. And those people who are advocating for crazy things like Medicaid expansion or increasing taxes or anything like that. I mean, I see no problem with a private organization saying, hey, look, Jack, you are using our brand and you're not really a Republican. Here's why. I mean, brands in politics are extraordinarily valuable, and so too is that elephant, or the jackass. If you're of the Democrat variety, the jackass is probably pretty valuable. And so you can't have people running around misrepresenting your brand. And that's the same holds true in business. I would absolutely freak out if oh wait, somebody did try to use the Cowboy State Politics logo. Yeah, his name was Reed Reisner. And immediately I made phone calls and all of a sudden that graphic disappeared. So, protecting your brand is really important, and I see no problem with the Republican Party doing that.
If you are a candidate, if you are a legislator or an office holder, public figure, your name is your brand.
Yes.
And I guess that's one of the things that really...
That's a really good point, by the way.
It is. And
of course it is. You came up with it.
I think a lot of people get discouraged from running for office because they see, for example, what's happened to me over the last year.
Yeah.
Why would I want to put myself through that? Why would I want to be dragged through the mud, called every name under the book, most of it unsubstantiated? So I'll be glad to have Jimmy on.
Yeah, Jimmy, that's going to be fun at the top. By the way, 9 o'clock, Jimmy Skogard, going to be an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah,
But I want to expound on what you just said, though. So in politics, like, your name is your brand, right? You still see people running around with shirts that say Reagan Quayle, or Reagan Bush, excuse me. Dan Quayle was George W. Bush's vice president. But you still see people running around with that name Reagan. And how often do you see political advertisements that have the name Reagan somewhere on it, or Trump for that matter?
Our forefathers pledged their lives, their sacred honor, their fortunes. In this case, many of us, people like John Bear, myself, independent business people, now you become a public figure, and people who have never done jack crap want to stand up and pull you back down into the crab pot, and call you all sorts of things. There are sacrifices made. I could never run a business with the same public attitude that pre-existed.
No.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. My dad, he worked in the same store that he later owned for the vast majority of his life. And I once asked him, I'm like, "Hey, Dad, you're a Republican. Why do I hear you saying Democrat stuff?" And he'd always say, "You know what? I'm of the political party that my customer is."
Yeah, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Michael Jordan.
His Republicans wear shoes too.
Yeah. He was once asked, "Hey, we never hear you really endorse anybody," and the only thing he said was, "Republicans have to wear shoes too."
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's any. I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, but that goes back to what I say, and I have respect for anybody who does decide to put themselves out there, and because it'll change your life forever.
Oh yeah. Well, and there's the level of scrutiny that goes along with it is pretty amazing, right? People are going to dig through everything that you ever did.
That's an interesting point itself. The problem is there is very little level of scrutiny, even amongst the press.
Well,
the press is not curious.
If you're a Democrat, there's very little scrutiny. If you're a Republican,
yeah, but even then, it's haphazard. It is surface type thing. They very seldom dig in and get the real story. They see something that looks like a story, they publish it. Maybe later they might have to print a retraction on page 7.
Yeah,
it really wasn't what we got. But that once it's out there, and it's in the public mind, and the public has already made up their mind. And then you've got people that sit in their mom's basement behind the keyboard in their underbritches, and they know everything about everything, and they're gonna call you every name.
And so in the business that we're in, this program and the open range record, we do a tremendous amount of research, and often there are pieces that are sent to me by one of our writers, and I often say, maybe you better check this one out. I don't know about this claim. Let's dig a little bit deeper on this claim and find out if it's true, because there's a lot of things online, like Ken said. The people just kind of do a surface level view of whomever they're talking about. And there's a ton of crap online that you can find about everybody. And, half of it might be true. In some cases, less than that. However, there are cases, Ken, where there's a whole bunch online that turns out to be very, very true. So let me give you an example. This morning, I published an article on the open range record. There it is right there. Driscoll's Conservation Machine and $1 million of your money. And by the way, in politics, I think that the dirty dealings that you did in your past are absolutely fair game. And people ought to know exactly how it is that you conduct your business. And so this piece here, and let me just read to you the opening paragraphs of it. And I quote, the Devil's Tower land swap was not simply about 80 acres. Now, that was a piece that we published quite a while ago. And Ogden Driscoll traded roughly 100 acres of worthless timber for 80 acres at the base of Devil's Tower. I mean, you want to talk about an extraordinarily valuable piece of property. That 80 acres is right there. And Ogden Driscoll owns a campground that's right there. I mean, you drive up to the tower, and the gate to go into the National Monument isn't even 100 yards from his campground. In fact, it's probably 50 yards. So adding another 80 to it, extraordinarily valuable. So that was simply a piece of the story the public could see. The larger story was unfolding quietly in parallel through conservation easements, legislative appropriations, land trusts, and a political world that Ogden Driscoll himself created. The Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust traces its origins, and we're going back to the early 2000s here. Ogden, the beginning of Ogden Driscoll's political career. But anyway, the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust traces its origins to a December 2000 vote of the Stock Growers Association. Isn't it funny how the Stock Growers Association always ends up in some really, really dirty stuff? I mean, Johnson County Cattle War,
I don't think it's funny.
Yeah, they're always there somewhere. Anyway, so the Stock Growers Association formally registered the land trust in 2001. Now, later reporting identified Driscoll as one of the organization's founding board members. Now, later, he becomes, not that much later, actually, he becomes a Wyoming state senator. And in 2012, the legislature passed Senate File 42, authorizing major conservation funding projects under the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Funding Act. Buried inside the bill is the, quote, Devil's Tower Conservation Easement. The legislation authorized approximately $1 million in Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust funding tied to a project exceeding $8.9 million for roughly 7,400 acres in Crook County. While the legislation moved through Cheyenne, listen to this, Ogden sat in the Wyoming Senate. Ogden introduced the bill. The bill went to a committee that Ogden was on. Now, the only saving grace out of any of this is that Driscoll did vote conflict in the committee, and he did vote conflict on third reading of the bill. But I think that shows you the appearance of impropriety, the optics, if it were, about this whole conservation easement. You see, Ogden Driscoll helped build this whole thing where you could put your land in a conservation easement and get a giant chunk of money from the state. Now, here's the interesting thing. You would think that if you did a conservation easement that you would lose control over your land, that essentially you're kind of selling your land to the state, but that's not how this thing works. So this one made sure that Ogden still had control of it, that it was still under, like his family's umbrella. It's just that he got a chunk of money for it, and that it was still available for commercial development. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things in this article that you really need to pay attention to.
So, okay, you vote conflict. That means the final vote, you didn't actually have a recorded say.
Right.
But you had a lot of influence in the whole process.
He did, too. From beginning to end.
You cannot serve on a committee. You cannot serve on a board, even if you don't have a vote. Some boards are composed of members that don't have a vote.
Right.
But they still have a significant amount of influence. And if you do your influence properly, you don't need that vote. You've already turned the tide.
Yeah. Well, and so, like I said, Ogden was there with the Stock Growers Association when this entire plan was hatched. And since then, there have been a lot of people that have put their property into conservation easements, and they've received a crap load of your money. And that's what it boils down to. Ogden still controls everything. Listen to this. So the timing of this thing is important. Because Crook County records show that the Devil's Tower Conservation Easement was ultimately executed in 2015 and covered thousands of acres tied to Bear Lodge, which is Driscoll's property, and the Driscoll family holdings near Devil's Tower. The easement did not remove land from family control. The ranching continued, the roads remained, the utilities were there, the water infrastructure was there, the tourism-related uses, and the recreation. All of it stayed the same. The only difference is the state now has it, technically, and Ogden Driscoll got a whole crap load of money from it. Now, none of this, in this article, make sure that you understand that none of this is illegal. And that's the point to it, that Ogden was in the middle of it, and the legislation passed, and he took a big, giant paycheck out of it. Now, if it's fascinating when people that are in positions of authority are able to enrich themselves to it. And, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, you really need to go look at this piece. Like I say, it's on the Open Range Record, and it's entitled Driscoll's Conservation Machine and $1 million of your money. Hope you're having a good morning, Augie. Here's some more stuff on Ogden Driscoll. Actually, you know what? Let's take our first break, and then I'll tell you about this latest really funny installment in the Senate District 1 race. I laughed when I heard it. Hopefully you will too. Back in a minute. The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Well, it's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia.
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell. Iceland.
France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy state politics is only getting stronger. This program is expanding faster than, well, the bullcrap coming out of Ogden Driscoll's mouth. No, that's not true. You really can't stop that BS machine.
It's coming faster than we can learn the new buttons.
That part is true. Welcome back to the program, my friends. It's Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics, and the phone number, if you want to talk to me, is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Now, there are a ton of political debates going on right now. Most of them are forums. The difference between a forum and a debate is a debate, there's actually some back and forth. And so the candidates get to argue amongst themselves. A forum really is, hey, what's your opinion on this? And then they move to the next candidate. And there's really no chance for a back and forth. I think they're really dumb. In fact, the one last night was 3.5 hours worth of dumb.
Part of the dumb is without cross-examination, you can say anything and it sounds good, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, and the rest of it.
The press will not challenge anybody on that, ever.
No. And a good example of that is an article in the Sheridan mess about the tabulation machine testings that were going on. The truth is, they failed the tabulation test twice, Now, the clerk claimed last night, oh, no, it was a human error, and the machine caught it twice. The machines did exactly what they were supposed to. Yeah, well, that's not the problem. The problem, Edith Shunk, is you screwed up. And a 4-hour test ended up being 3 days worth. So, I mean, there's some major failures there. But according to the Sheridan Press, no, everything went fine. The test caught all the problems and no issue whatsoever.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. You just move along. Well, there is a candidate that really doesn't want to debate. Well, his name is Ogden Driscoll. So I've played for you a couple of times on the program some videos that Speaker of the House Chip Nyman has been doing. I think they're wonderfully funny. Well, now you see, Ogden doesn't want to debate Chip. He wants the Speaker of the House to debate Americans for Prosperity about the political bullcrap flyers they've been putting out. Go ahead and play. Go ahead.
I just want to say, you said the Speaker of the House to debate. He's former Senate president. That ought to be a good match.
It ought to be, man.
To get Ogden, yeah.
Old Augie, former Senate president, and the Speaker of the House.
We don't want to play that game.
Talk about a title fight, man. Well, I mean, I don't know about that, but go ahead and play the video from Chip.
Good evening, everyone out here in Senate District 1. We're going to do another quick little video here. It's just, this is getting really interesting and comical. Just going to give you a little background. You know, we're here and now, you're seeing some posts, I guess. People have been sending these posts that now all of a sudden Ogden can't debate me because I'm not interested in debating Tyler. I really think that it would be more informative for everybody if he and I would have a debate and discuss the issues. Well, now it's like he can't do that unless I debate Tyler first, which he said that I agreed to. And so it's just interesting. I mean, I just don't see any point in that. I mean, if it was him and I wanted to debate about the issue of the flyer stuff, that makes sense. But debating Tyler with him, I don't, whatever that is, that's not going to happen. I just don't see any way that can happen and be of any real use to anybody that's voting in District 1. So it's interesting though now that he is saying that, you know, it's my fault or whatever this isn't going to happen. Joni gave me some information that just blows me away. I just thought I'd relay this to all of you. The strategy is called DARVO. And I didn't even know this existed, but she read it and it just fits this. And also, if you'll indulge me a little bit, this was come up in the 1980s. It's called DARVO. Stands for deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Okay, get this. First, you deny, the aggressor denies or minimizes the initial wrongdoing. Sounds, yeah. The attack is the aggressor attacks the credibility, sanity, or character of the person confronting them, which would be me. And then the reverse victim and offender is the aggressor flips the narrative, claiming that they are the true victim of the situation and painting the original victim as the aggressor. So anyway,
the big old switcheroo.
You judge. Does that make any sense? Kind of fits. So we'll see how that plays out. But there's a strategy here in this, ladies and gentlemen. Sounds to me like, and this is
good enough. Okay, so here's where we're at. So Augie will not debate Chip Nyman one-on-one. Now, in forum, that's totally different. And this is the problem with forums. You don't get a chance to respond back and forth and question the person making the claim. So I won't do that. But instead, Augie wants Chip, the Speaker of the House, to debate the head of Americans for Prosperity. You know, the person that's putting these things out. And claiming that Chip is a real terrible person.
Would you want to debate someone who has no grounding in truth?
No.
You know, and he's proven that Americans for Poverty is what they really are. So Americans for Poverty has proven that the facts don't count. It's all the effect.
Yeah.
It's the impact. That's what we're after.
Yeah, it's ringing the bell. So Cowboy State Politics has obtained the letter that Ogden Driscoll handed to Chip Nyman, asking him to debate. So let me just read this to you. A campaign season is a time for ideas, records, and accountability, not anonymous accusations and glossy mail pieces that arrive in voters' mailboxes without an opportunity for questions. That's why I, and this is Ogden Driscoll, am publicly inviting Chip Nyman and AFP Wyoming's Tyler Lindholm to join me for an open, moderated public debate focused solely on the claims being made in the campaign flyers. So wait a minute. So Augie wants a debate between him, Tyler, and Chip Nyman. Now, Tyler Lindholm is the guy that's creating all of these mailers, right? Making all of these salacious claims, same claims that they made against, Ken and all the other conservatives. So essentially, what Augie wants is a 2-on-1 debate. So that way, Augie and Tyler can gang up on Chip, and then that's what they'll call a debate. And so Ogden goes on in this stupid piece, quote, if the statements in those mail pieces are accurate, they should stand up to public scrutiny. If they're misleading, voters deserve to hear the full context. Let's put every claim on the screen one by one. Yeah, that's going to work out in Chip's favor. You've got two people one of them that is creating all of these flyers, and the other one who is the beneficiary of them. That's not going to work. And why would Speaker Nyman debate Tyler Lindholm? That's already happened once, and Chip won. Tyler didn't. You see, the level of dishonesty coming from some of these establishment elitist politicians like Ogden Driscoll is just astounding. Listen to the last paragraph. Quote, I believe campaigns should be built on transparency and accountability. If we're willing to send thousands of mailers into people's homes, by the way, that's Tyler Lindholm doing it, we should be willing to defend every statement they contain in front of the people we're asking to represent. So here's what would happen. They would put one of these mailers on the screen, and they would just hammer Chip over and over and over and make him explain every single vote. And before he had time to get finished with it, then the next one would pop up, and it would be one after another, because there's probably been, I don't know, at least half a dozen of these stupid things that have hit mailboxes.
They've hit many of us all over the state. So maybe what we need to do is we need to get all those that were targeted together in a panel, and then have Tyler Lindholm come in, and we'll have a debate.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
But the problem with that is I don't want to give Tyler any more
oxygen,
any more reach than he's already purchased.
Well, and see, that's the point, right? So Tyler Lindholm gets to make all of these claims behind the scenes, and he's not the one being held accountable. And the truth is, the only accountability that I've seen, and I'll show it to you. Let's see here. Where was it? Right here. So the only accountability that I've seen is this article that we published on the Open Range Record. That guy on the left there, that's Tyler Lindholm. And, of course, Augie, and then that's Eric Barlow, and then Melissa Butcher. But this whole piece talks about how House Bill 200 from 2020, and I think I talked about this yesterday on the program, but this is the only accountability that I've seen when it comes to Tyler Lindholm. And, he's not running for office. He's running a political action committee. And so he gets to sit in his little office chair and come up with these ridiculous claims and never has to answer.
And then you have little trolls sitting in their mom's basement.
Yeah, well, and that's what happens.
That go parrot that stuff.
Yeah.
In a condensed, diluted, paraphrased form.
Yep.
And twisted.
And see, and look at it from the voter's perspective, right? Your mailbox is being filled with these things over and over and over. And, if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. Or people believe that it's the truth.
Or things just become so messy that you don't want to be involved with it anymore, and you just, let's just cut that away.
Yeah. I'm just going to flip a coin. And, a good example of that was the Senate District 22 race 2 years ago between Mark Jennings and Poison Barry Crago. There was a mailer in my mailbox like once a week on that. I mean, it was absolutely incredible how many pieces of mail that guy sent out, and most of it was paid for by Americans for Prosperity. And Mark and I did an episode, and we went through several of those mailers, and we didn't find one claim on them that was actually true. It was all distorted, twisted, spin. I mean, it's just really ridiculous.
And we mentioned, just to get the idea of the money, people have tried to hammer me because I took certain money from somebody they don't like. An individual is limited to $1,500.
Right.
So a couple can give $3,000. $3,000 won't even pay for one mailer.
No.
And I'm gonna sell out my honor, my sacred honor, for $1,500 or $3,000.
Well, the truth is that campaigns are expensive, and it doesn't matter what office you're running for. So one of those little yard signs, I think when I ran for city council in Buffalo, I think those were like $3 or $4 a piece is what I paid for them. You buy them in bulk, you get a better rate, but I didn't need them in bulk.
Big 4x4s, I had to look it up for the police reports right at $50.
Yeah, I mean, so they're expensive, and even if you're running for, a city council race or county commission or whatever, there's a tremendous amount of money there. And to send out and not even for your district, Ken, but if you were to send out a county-wide mailer to everybody, you're talking several $1,000s for one piece of mail. And, it takes a lot of campaign contributions to be able to do that. And so, like Ken said, individuals are limited to $1,500, which, by the way, I think that's kind of a load of crap. I think I really have a problem with the government telling you how you can spend your own money however you want to do that. I realize that there are political considerations to that argument, but I really have a problem with it. Free speech is free speech is free speech, and the government doesn't get to say how you spend your money. But be that as it may, the law says $1,500 per person. And so to send out a mailer, it takes several individuals to do one piece. And in Wyoming, I think one of the big problems, and, maybe this is a larger conversation, but we won't know about any of the campaign spending on state level candidates until 1 week before the primary. That's when all the reports are due. So you don't know who's spending money where, who's getting money from which person, and it's only 1 week, which, by the way, is not long enough to inform people. I don't know if a candidate is taking money from Alex Soros or Liz Storr or whatever. It doesn't matter. Or, the Koch brothers or whatever. It doesn't matter. There's just not enough time to inform voters. And I think that law, too, was intentionally written that way. So that, and I would be much happier if the deadline was, 1 month before the election. Well, then if that were the case, what you would see is all the big campaign spending would happen in the month, right preceding the primary election. So I don't know. I mean, campaign financing, it's a funny thing, and you really need to be accurate about the claims that you're making, and specifically who you're making the claims about. And, so here in about 15 minutes, we're going to talk to Jimmy Skogard, and the topic of conversation is going to be campaign financing. And so anyway, let's see here. We got about 15 minutes left, so let's get to... Oh, you know what? I wanted to bring up this letter to the editor yesterday, and I didn't get to it. Data centers are a big topic right now, and there's a group that just says, well, we need to ban them. They're too dangerous, and they're going to take too much water and too much power, and it's we just got to get rid of them. Then, there's folks on the other side who say, well, no, man. I mean, it's like Governor Gordon, right? He issued that op-ed basically saying, you need to lead, follow, or get out of the way with these data centers. But it's not the government's place to be involved in the free market, aside from, some, limited regulations, right? We got to have environmental regulations and, those sorts of things. But beyond that, I mean, but they have to only cover the bare minimum. And when government starts telling you what type of business you can engage in and what you can't, well, that's getting way away from the free market. And if you want to know what creates, inflation, what creates high government spending, it's those sorts of things. So there's a letter to the editor, and this one was in the Wyoming Turkey Vulture, the Wyoming Tribune Eagle, and it's entitled, Trying to Ban Data Centers Isn't the Answer. Safety Measures and Regulation Are. And again, just let me give you the opening paragraphs. Quote, when it comes to data centers, I'm not an expert. However, I do keep hearing rumors about everything wrong with them. Not just that they use a lot of water or that people are concerned about water discharge or whether that can be treated, but rumors stating that the local data center contributes to brown water in the city, or that Trump has spread a bunch of grant money out among rich companies that own data centers and a bunch are being built to not be used, so just to justify the money. Honestly, these are all scary, but I would need to see the receipts to know for sure. Even then, is the solution really to stop data centers entirely? Because I don't really think that that's feasible. Never mind AI for the moment, which carries its own set of problems, but only continues to improve in its quality. Just considering data centers in general, assume for a moment that there were a national ban on them. Would people be satisfied to not have more streaming services, more YouTube, more Facebook, more everything? Especially in an expanding world where online activity is not only enjoyable, but often the only means for people to make a living. So the point here is that just outright banning something because you're scared of it, I don't think that that's the answer at all. Rather, what I do think is the answer is to get the facts, and then we all sit down and we figure out, okay, what is a responsible way to do this? With every new technology, there are groups of people that are just terrified about it, and they say, we're not going to, we don't want any of this to happen, we're not in my backyard, that sort of thing. But what you need to do first is have the facts, and I don't think that we have those with data centers. Secondarily, I think if a person jumps through all the hoops and they're not taking government money and they've handled all their water issues or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a data center. There's no reason why the government should say no. That's not the government's place. Government needs to stay the heck out of the free market, period.
There's an interesting aspect to that, too, that I haven't heard people discuss. Years ago in Wyoming, they said, we have to rebuild all of our school buildings because they need to be smart wired.
Yeah.
Essentially, we can't retrofit them. And so there was a big push, and we
built a lot of
schools. And, we had the money to do it. We have a lot of nice buildings. They put all of this infrastructure inside the school, which now in the wireless age is obsolete.
It's all obsolete
is unneeded.
now.
You could have gone into a 100-year-old building and occupied it just as easily. There are other concerns, obviously, fire and safety and those things. But when I look at the AI push, I wonder by the time they get these data centers up and running, how obsolete are they going to be? You go out and you buy a new laptop 6 months to a year down the road.
It's totally obsolete.
Yeah, things move so fast. And so you've got investors that are looking at this from a business perspective. I just wonder how that's going to change the business landscape over the next few years as technology outpaces these things. Are communities going to be left, and I think it's a good question, are communities going to be left with these hulking buildings and somebody who lost their fortune and can't afford to do anything with it? What's going to happen?
Well, I think that's an excellent point. And, to give you an example, so this data card right here, this thing is the size of the hard drive on my laptop. Now, when I bought my laptop 3 years ago, I bought the latest and greatest.
But you're holding up the card plus the reader that's there.
Yeah,
if you pull the card out, that's actually the meat right there.
Yeah. So that little thing right there is bigger than the hard drive in my computer. And so, technology advances so quickly. And Ken, you're right that by the time you get one of these things built, there's a high likelihood that it's already kind of obsolete. It was not that long ago where a computer that, really has less capability than this thing filled up an entire room. And the biggest problem in the building was keeping it cool because the computers gave off so much heat. And I mean, we're talking about the old reel-to-reel, magnetic tape computers.
Yeah, I've got a computer over here in the control room at the studio that I bought probably 10 years ago. It was the best I could get.
Yeah, and it's totally obsolete.
Won't even run now.
Yeah. But, the point is that we're dumping a whole bunch of money in here, and I think that in many cases, we don't have enough information to make informed decisions. And I would never be in favor of, a knee-jerk reaction to say, oh no, these things are scary. We can't do it. Okay, well, let's have a mature discussion about it. Now, let me bookend this by saying that whatever happens in a community, that's up to the community, right? I mean, we've got, for good or bad, right? There's lots of examples where a big business has wanted to move into a community, and the people that live there have said, no, we don't want that. It's going to use too much water, or it's just going to screw up the landscape or whatever, and that business goes elsewhere. Well, come to find out, that could have really helped the community. But in the end, it's up to the people that live there, right? If they don't want a giant brewery in their community, well, then they don't have to have one. If they don't want to have a company that builds nuclear reactors, then they don't have to have that either. And for low-level public officials to yell and scream about how terrible their community is for getting rid of it, I just think that's so short-sighted. I mean, it is the will, all power. Okay, the first line of the Wyoming Constitution, this little book here, is all power is inherent in the people. And let me just read the whole thing to you. It says, all power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. For the advancement of these ends, they have at all times an inalienable and indefeasible right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in any manner as they think proper. All power is inherent in the people. And if a community doesn't want a nuclear reactor being built in their backyard, or they don't want a brewery, or if they don't want a data center, that's up to the people that live there. That's not up to, a low-level city councilman who, has made it his mission to scream about how terrible his constituents are. It's not up to him either. So anyway, I found this letter to be pretty insightful. That, look, the answer is not to ban them outright. I don't even think you know what you're banning yet. The answer is to make sure everything's safe, to make sure all of the ducks are in a row, and to do it correctly. That's the answer. To have a mature discussion about it. And in many cases, I don't think that we're having a mature discussion about these things. I mean, Ken, how often do these sorts of things come up at the legislature? Hey, let's ban it. Let's get rid of it. No, we can't have it.
More often than I would like to think.
And
there is a knee-jerk reaction. There ought to be a law. And we've talked about it before, there are always unintended consequences with anything that you do. I have hopes that business-wise, these things won't make sense in a short period of time.
Yeah. Well, and it's, again, technology is advancing so fast that, just last year, man, I couldn't get AI to write me something without it having like all sorts of errors in it. And now it can record this podcast or this program in real time, and I really don't even have to run it through a spell checker anymore. It's the speed at which technology advances is truly incredible. All right, Ken, let's go ahead and take our second break, and when we come back, hopefully we're going to talk to Jimmy Skogard. Back in a minute. The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
This is Brent Bean, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Open Line Friday on the show. If you want to be part of the program, give me a call, 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Today's program is also brought to you by Cowboy State Trailers. We haul a lot of stuff here in Wyoming. Four-wheelers, motorcycles, different vehicles. Also, you look in Ken's vehicle and it's loaded down with tools. He often says how he needs a trailer to put all of his crap in. Well, the guys you need to talk to are Cowboy State Trailers in Shoshone. They've got any trailer that you can think of, they've got it. Utility trailers, tilt decks, dump beds, gooseneck trailers, and they also sell old hickory sheds. So if you need a shed to put your crap in, you can get that there too. So give them a call, 307-409-0396, 307-409-0396. And if you tell them that David sent you, they'll knock $250 off your bill. So anyways, Cowboy State Trailers. Make sure you go give them a call. All right. Well, in just a second, hopefully we're going to be joined by Jimmy Skogard, and it's...
You keep using that phrase, hopefully. I'm not sure you know what that word means.
I do. I do want to talk to this guy because I think it's important that we step out from behind our keyboards and we have an actual discussion. And that's what we're going to have if here in just a second he shows up. So, and let me tell you why. It is so easy on social media to make all sorts of claims. And a lot of us have become so used to typing out any comment that we want, and we don't hardly ever get held accountable to it. And so I think that we need to have more. There's lots of people that write letters to the editor in the Sheridan mess. And I ask them, hey, why don't you come on the program and talk about, the things that you've written in the paper instead of just, being, sending in some missive and publishing it. I think that we really got to get back to having conversations about things that, about the things that we say. So let's see here. Welcome to the program, Mr. Jimmy Skogard. How are you?
Good, David. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you agreed to, because I think there's some things that we really got to talk about. And so even though you can't see it, I'm going to put on the screen so our viewers can see some of the comments that were made on social media. So hold on just a second. And it's just all it is the back and forth that you, me, and Ken had. And so this first one, it's one of your comments, and it says, Jamie Lean and Ken Pendergraft owe us an explanation. They both received $3,000 from Mr. Brophy. Carlene and Dan Brophy, Chicago residents who bought the Cheney Mansion in Wilson. Then I'm going to skip to the end. It says, this looks like purchase legislation sponsored and supported by purchase legislators. Vote for representatives who represent your communities, not big money. All right, Jimmy, you have any evidence that my friend here committed a felony?
Did I indicate that he committed a felony?
You said he was purchased. That's saying it was bribery, my friend. Where's your evidence?
It looks like purchase legislation, doesn't it?
Explain how.
Well, when you sponsor legislation that's near and dear to a donor's heart, it kind of looks like purchase legislation.
What piece of legislation did Carlene and Dan Brophy say that they wanted?
From my research, it looked like Dan is a a strong proponent of Second Amendment rights, and we've seen in 2022 we got a Second Amendment bill which is passed and fine. I'm okay with that. And then in 2025, I think we saw a rehash of something about increasing penalties, and I was trying to understand what's the big deal there. We have the 2022 amendment or legislation, but we don't. Why did we need to increase penalties for police officers to 50,000, and why did we need to remove federal or state immunity and things like that?
Do you have any evidence whatsoever that Dan and Carlene Brophy wanted that bill passed? That's their bill. Do you have any evidence whatsoever?
Just an article that Daniel wrote.
Okay, so he supports Second Amendment rights. So do over 250,000 other people that live in this state. Probably more than that.
I don't
Are they
mind
purchased too?
There's nothing wrong with Second Amendment rights and supporting it. But when you go overboard, when you go and start enacting legislation that's ridiculous, that contradicts,
in your opinion,
that contradicts the wishes of the 23 sheriffs and a large number of chiefs of police within the state of Wyoming, and then has to be overridden by a governor's veto because it's so ridiculous, and it's a waste of time. Period, David. It was revisited 11 out of 20 times in the last legislative session. 11 days out of the 20, it was revisited, wasting our legislature's time.
Okay, so where is the evidence that Dan and Carlene Brophy sponsored that particular piece of legislation and bribed my friend, Representative Pendergraft, which is what you accused him of? Where's the evidence?
I did not accuse him of that. What I simply asked a question, David. I asked, does my post say I accuse Ken Pendergraft of taking a bribe?
This looks like purchased legislation sponsored by and supported by purchased legislators. That's what it says. So please tell me how that isn't an accusation of bribery.
Well, it's a statement. It's a statement of, and maybe it was a little bit rough on old Ken there. So I apologize, but I feel kind of strongly about having the time of my state representatives wasted.
Why is it wasted to support Second Amendment rights, which is probably the number 2 issue in this state? Why is that a waste, sir?
Because it's already been settled, David. It's already been settled.
In your opinion,
would say that the bill was passed. How many times has it been challenged since it was enacted?
I can think of several cases where it should have been used, but a local prosecutor did.
Let's spew them out there. Where the case is at?
Sure. There was one 3 years ago in Bighorn, Wyoming, where the ATF raided a guy's house and took an innocent Wyoming citizen's guns that it took her 3 years to get back. So tell me why that SEPA bill, why that isn't necessary. And secondly, why does that constitute bribery, sir? You keep saying it's a statement. It's not. When you accuse somebody of being purchased, there's 4 passages in the Wyoming Constitution that specifically talk about bribery. And you're the one saying that legislators are purchased? Come on, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm saying that. When I do my research, I see that about 20% of and up to 40% of some of the funding for these Freedom Caucus candidates that all align on this issue come from the Brophies. So why is that not purchase legislation? If you have that much influence in somebody's campaign,
Jimmy.
Here's the guy you accused.
I take money from Brophy because we're friends, because we have the same views. He did not come to me and say, this is what I want you to do. He found somebody who was already doing what he liked and then threw in with us. Your statements about Brophy's giving, the bulk of the money to the Freedom Caucus are BS. They do contribute, but they contribute because we have the same values, we have the same ideas, the same understanding. And it's natural for people to team up to do that. As we expressed earlier, maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't, the $3,000 that the Brophies put into my campaign won't even pay for one flyer in my district. Do you think that I would sell out my honor for a couple $1,000. You know, just about 100 years ago, I'd have met you out in the street. But we don't play that game that way anymore. But people's honor means things. You don't know me from Adam. I have been a very honorable person my entire life. I've been a pastor. I've been a business partner. And now somebody who doesn't know me, who has some opinion, wants to sit out and accuse me of having no honor, of being a whore. You, sir, can go to hell.
Okay, go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, those are your words, Ken. I'm calling out. I want transparency. I want to know if I see a donor that has a strong preference for Second Amendment protection acts, and then I see my legislators banding together, and each one of them, well, I think most of them. I mean, I looked at 6 because I got kicked out of a caucus meeting that I went to ask about this. You know, that was a perfect opportunity for you to provide that transparency right there in front of you, the constituency, and bar none. And yet you let Bill Alleman walk across the question that I asked at that meeting. And so now we're having this conversation here, and we're having it on Facebook because I didn't get it resolved. You had an opportunity to resolve it then. You know, I'm looking at a table from that meeting. It was you and Kevin Campbell, Jamie Lean, Tony Locke, Tommy Strock, and Bill Alleman at that meeting. And you know, I looked at the contribution section in Wyoming State Finance, and I see that about 24% of your combined contributions came from that family across all of those candidates. And then when you propose this type of legislation and tell me that you're not being influenced by a wealthy donor from Teton County when he has, I don't know, does he have business getting involved in your county? Does he have business getting involved in Natrona County? I'm not so sure. You know, I think if you derive the support from your constituents and you represent your constituents, then you should have that type of input from your constituents and not from some wealthy donor somewhere else.
First of all, he does live in Wyoming. Now, he does have a house in Arizona. That's true. But he does live in Wyoming. And the person that you're accusing, sir, is one of the most decent people that I know. Both he and his wife.
I'm accusing him of nothing.
It's my turn to talk. I let you talk. This is my program. You accused me, and you accused my friend. And so now it's my turn, since it is my program. They're two of the most decent people that I know. And do you know what it's called when they support candidates that align with their issues? That's called the freedom of speech, sir. And it's not for you, a Senate candidate, to claim that people are being bribed when they're not. That's called the freedom of speech. And just because they're not donating to you, and I don't know what got under your saddle, but the truth is, Jimmy, that you accuse people of things that aren't true. You don't have the evidence. There is no evidence that they were bribed because they weren't. That's called the freedom of speech. Now, I have one more thing to say to you, sir. You accused me of you said, oh, you get a lot of support from Teton County. I work for my money, sir. I don't need your accusations. And frankly, I kind of resent it. I gave you time on my program, and then you go on social media and accuse me and my friends of things that just aren't true. It's called the freedom of speech. And by the way, and I want you to listen to this because this is you saying we should stand up for the Constitution. Ken, play that soundbite. All right, it's all right. I got it. Hold on just a second. Let's see here. Where is it? Now listen to this.
I'm Jimmy Skogard, and I'm running for Senate in 2026. Citizens defend the Constitution.
You know what's in the Constitution, Jimmy? The freedom of speech. And that's exactly what Dan and Carlene Brophy do. They support candidates who believe in the same things that they do. Now, you and I don't agree on a whole heck of a lot of things, but I'm sure that you can find candidates in the Democrat Party to support the things that you believe in. That's their freedom of speech. And you don't get to accuse people of bribery just because you disagree with their positions. There are a ton of people in the Wyoming legislature that have nothing to do with Dan and Carlene Brophy that have sponsored Second Amendment legislation. A ton of them. There are lots of 2A bills, gun bills, that have been passed in the Wyoming legislature that way before Dan and Carlene Brophy ever decided to support candidates. It doesn't mean that those people are being bribed. It means that this state likes our guns. That's what that means. And it's their freedom of speech. That's it.
Am I still turned off, or?
I just muted you because you were interrupting me, but you've been on for a long time.
Am I allowed to speak now?
If you're going to tell the truth, go ahead.
All right. Well, basically, it has the appearance of.
No, it doesn't.
Are you finished, or do I speak?
You know what? Get rid of this guy. I'm tired of him. All right. So, my friends, the point is, you don't get to accuse people of bribery just because you don't like their positions. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a whole litany of Facebook posts from Jimmy Skogard. You know what? I don't give two craps about it. He's not going to win the election, and he should focus on his own damn election instead of attacking people who are just trying to support the things that they believe in with their own freedom of speech. Let's go to a break, and then we're going to be back with Christine Temple. Are you sick to death of being told what to think? Maybe you don't even realize that it's happening. Freedom Caucus bad, big spending, big government, liberal, Republican good. Conservatives are bad and they want to starve little children. I have heard it all, my friends. We are way past the time when the news was just the news, if it ever was. But wouldn't it be nice if you had a news platform that was at least honest about what they were telling you? News on the news page, opinion on the opinion page. That's exactly what the Open Range Record is. Go to the website, openrangerecord.com. News, analysis, opinion, and investigative journalism. One more time, that website is openrangerecord.com. You can listen and watch Cowboy State Politics live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble every Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pay attention to all that other block-headed, Borg-like so-called news if you want. But if you want to get the real story, watch Cowboy State Politics live. And now, back to the program. Welcome back to the program. It's Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It is Open Line Friday. 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Now, before we get to our guest, let me just say a couple of things. Dan and Carlene Brophy are two of the most principled people that I know. I've had dinner with them. I've prayed with them. They believe in Wyoming. They believe in this country. They are some of the most patriotic people that you're ever going to meet. They donate to candidates that they believe in, that support the same things that they do. You're never going to get anybody, except for Jimmy Skogard, that would question their integrity. They love this state. They love this country. And, you know, the truth is, if there are candidates that don't support the things that they believe in, they don't support them. I mean, I know a couple of times where they've just said, you know what, we donated to you in the past, but your voting record sucks. They are good people, and they don't deserve to be treated that way. On a Facebook post by Jimmy Skogard, a guy who is not going to win a Senate election. So Dan, Carlene, I'm sorry that Jimmy put that through you, but we got your back. All right. So joining me in the studio is Christine Temple, and she is running for the Sheridan County Clerk. Good morning, Christine. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm a little nervous, especially coming in after all of that.
Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? It's not that often that I get to throw somebody off my program.
That was pretty unprecedented.
It was unprecedented.
Yeah, but when you're that bullheaded and you cannot have a logical, peaceful discussion,
Yeah.
you're going to stick by your guns and yet not admit what your gun really is.
Yeah.
That's just
all right.
Enough
So
of that.
enough of that.
Well,
So-
you've thrown one person off, so you've gotten it out of your system, and we should be good to go.
Yeah. All right. So you're running for Sheridan County Clerk. Why are you doing that?
Because I think we need a change. I think that I think sometimes when you've got a leader that's been somewhere long enough and they stop following statute and they start making up their own rules and they start attributing things to people that aren't true, and we have election integrity issues and all of those things. I think it's time for people to get involved in. I'm loving this grassroots movement of the people getting involved in reclaiming their government.
Okay. So you saw some things that were wrong in the clerk's office, and you decided to make a change. So do you have any qualifications to take this job? Do you know what you're doing?
I do. I do. I've worked in city, county, state, federal government for my whole life. My background, everything, and I've worked with the military as well. I've worked everything in major, large-scale budgets. I've done all of the finance things. I've worked in elections my whole life as a person, as a volunteer. Everything I've worked as a loan officer, even branch manager. So the titling, the records, I've worked in compliance my entire life. So there isn't anything that I haven't done. The biggest learning thing for me will be the earth mineral aspect of it. And I'm super excited if I get the chance to start really learning about that as well.
Okay, so there was a ridiculously long forum last night, and one of the questions I thought was interesting. I think it was something to the effect of what's the biggest misunderstanding about the clerk's office. Just to kind of play off of that, most people think that the clerk's job is just elections.
No.
What does the clerk actually do?
So the clerk has many things they do. They do the records maintenance essentially for our county, land records, titles. They also even do marriage licenses, which I think is a great thing, obviously. They handle all of the rare earth minerals, or not rare earth, but the earth minerals. A large part of it, too, is the community service aspect of it as well. They have a lot of tremendous statutes that they too have to follow. There's a lot of things. And the other biggest thing is the budgetary officer. Now, that doesn't mean they do budgets for the sheriff or any of these places, but it's their job to take those budgets and pull them in and ensure that they're compliant and all of that, as well as, of course, doing her own budget for the clerk's office itself.
Okay, well, and a large portion of that, I would say a maybe not a majority of what the clerk does, but it all relates to property. And
deeds are
huge, right?
Huge, and a huge topic, because a lot of people, you're seeing a tremendous amount of fraud and scams and everything in that area. Been so for the last couple of years, mortgage deeds and land deeds.
Okay, so how do you stop that fraud if you're the clerk?
You comply. You follow your compliance. You take the time to ensure that your team is fully trained and educated so they know exactly what they're doing. You also make sure that part of educating and training them is if they have something come across their table that they don't know, that they don't make an assumption, that they go to the right people to make sure they get the information. You have to put things in place, and that's why we have stuff like statutory rules and a process. These things are in place to help prevent those measures. When I was the branch manager at Wells Fargo, we had zero fraud in my branch coming from my branch. And the reason for that is getting out in front of it and ensuring everybody is trained and knowledgeable on what to look out for, what the statutes are, and what the processes are so that we can protect against it.
So, sorry, I got to unmute myself.
You got muted too? You got in trouble
Yeah,
too?
I probably needed to be.
I didn't do that.
We put together an ad for you yesterday,
Yes,
and in
sir.
that ad, you said something to the effect of, "It's not my job to make the rules; it's my job to obey the rules." Would you elaborate on that concept a little bit?
Yeah, so the reason that in particular is important is the things that happened last week in the testing. And they were confiscating people's personal property. And some of the people were very upset by that because it violates the Wyoming Public Meetings Statute, which is there so that we can have transparency from our electeds. And
So hold on a minute. That was
Yeah.
a little vague. Explain exactly what was going on there.
So they were confiscating cell phones, purses, 100% of your personal belongings. They were saying, no, you have to keep everything out here.
But you need to explain what the circumstances
Yeah,
was
the-
of these
what was
people.
the
Oh,
context?
forgive me.
Yeah.
So it was the LNA testing. So we have to do the testing every year. They're supposed to do it before they do the public testing to ensure everything's on there. And then the public comes in and the purpose is, hey, these are our election machines. We're going to show you that everything's up, everything's ready to go. So that the whole purpose is to show transparency and give people confidence in our elections, that everything's good to go. So people arrived there and they were told, you've got to leave your electronics. You've got to leave your purses.
Why?
Well, because the clerk said, well, it was the Secretary of State directive. It's from them. Well, that's not true. That was a lie. And so people then went immediately. Some actually left and went to the Secretary of State's office. Some complained after the fact. The Secretary of State's office reached out directly to our clerk and said, hey, what's going on? This is not statutory. This is not coming from our office. And instead of the clerk then saying, you know what, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, she doubled down on it and well, they can't tell me what to do, and then continued to do it. And she's making up her own rules, which are completely against any of the direction and statutes of our state, go against our head of our state elected official that runs our elections, going against them. And she's making rules that also then violate other rules and statutes like the Wyoming Public Meetings Act, which again are intended for us to have transparency with our elected officials. You can't just go around and make up a bunch of rules that violate our rights.
Well, probably the reason why she didn't want cell phones in when the testing was going on is to prevent pictures like this. Go ahead and show it to him again. So this is a picture from inside the elections office in Sheridan County. This was taken at 8:10 in the morning. At least that's what the metadata on the picture says. So the meeting was supposed to start at 8. And at 8:10, there was nobody in the office. And those circles in the picture, those are the keys to the election machine, which means you turn that little key and the whole thing is open. You could easily steal a key or whatever. But the whole point is that she was trying to prevent transparency in the office. So let me take this in.
Well, and
Go ahead.
that's frightening, and it's frightening separately when we've got elected officials that are willfully, purposefully being dishonest, and then when it's brought to them, doubling down and continuing that dishonesty.
Well, she said it last night.
She did. She brought it up again in the forum, and my thing is these are elected officials, and if we can't trust them to be honest and follow statute and do all of the things that we have those expectations for a reason, that's disturbing to me. It's corruption at its core.
Okay, let me take this in kind of a different direction.
Okay.
Everybody's aware of what happened in Weston County. We had a completely incompetent clerk. I would say willfully incompetent, but that's just my opinion. And screwed up the election, thousands of votes disenfranchised. But the other thing that she did that I don't think ever got really any press whatsoever was that she was like, I think the number I heard was like 6 or 8 months behind on filing property deeds, on taking care of all the property records. So, and I don't know if that's necessarily been public until now. But why is it so important that the clerk stays up on, all of those filings, the property deeds, all that? Why is that important?
Because if you can't maintain our records, then our records are not secure, and all kinds of things can happen. They can be stolen. People can walk out with them. If you're not doing just the maintenance, then how do we know that you're doing the records to begin with properly? You're tasked with a job, and if you're incapable and unable to do it, then you need to be able to find somebody to do it. We have to have secure things in place and follow these for a purpose. It's my thing is statutes and all of these things are not suggestions. They're in there for a purpose.
So Patrick has a question, and if you could put this up on the screen, Ken, just scroll up just a little bit in the comments. There it is. Nope, go down. There you go. Are records becoming more digitized rather than paper only is what he wants to know.
So they're both. So a lot of statutes, and still government is government, and they have a lot of paper stuff. And I'm one of those creepy government people. I have file boxes still in my garage with paper.
Of government paper?
Not like,
so you're
classified
not like Joe
Biden stuff.
Okay.
So the thing is the value of having the actual paper is you have those records. I realize we're coming into a much more digitized world. And so I think we're for probably quite some time, have both. So yes, for example, titles. Most states are going to a completely electronic titling
scares
system.
The crap out of me.
It does me too. And the thing that scares me about it is the more that you digitize stuff, the less that us citizens have these things in our hands. And it's an ownership thing for me. And so the answer to the question is we're going to have both. A lot of our statutes require, whether it's in banking, government, and all of these things, that you have to maintain paper records on a lot of things for years. Federal government, a lot of things are everywhere from 3 to 7 years. So I think we'll still have paper as a backup, but what concerns me is the citizens, we seem to be losing a lot of that capability of ourselves having that paper backup.
The last loan that Christine and I got, I was kind of, and at the time, I really wasn't worried about it. But the more I think about it, like everything was pretty much done electronically. We signed the paper, right? The actual sheet of paper. But then all of the correspondence was all electronic. And I can't help but wonder, where that stuff ends up and how do you keep it secure? If you're the clerk and a lot of these records are electronic, what are the policies and procedures you put in place to make sure those things stay secure? It's not very hard to attach something to an email.
Well, and that's why we have statute. That's why we have all of these things in place. And I think there's always an inherent risk with digital things for people to get. James and I were a part of that massive federal government hack back in 2015, 16. I mean, our fingerprints, our entire life back to when we were 16 years old, people had. And I mean, we would get emails, they had a thing covering us to protect us, that people were using my fingerprints in Taiwan. Or so the thing is even
it's not funny, but
it is, and it's scary. On top of it, the reality is with digital stuff, we've seen a huge increase in scams and fraud and theft and all of these things. And the best we can do is follow the processes in place to protect it. But as citizens, I think we need to start being a little bit more outspoken on the idea of, look, that's great that you have it digital, but I want my copies too. Not to mention the fact that we still have millions of people in this country. I mean, I just taught my mother-in-law how to do online banking, and beyond that, she doesn't know how to do any of that stuff. You're excluding a huge part of your citizenry as well when you try to push for straight digital. And I think it's just a control thing on top of it that we need to be able to have our own stuff.
Okay, so let me kind of refine my question a little bit, because I don't think that we got an answer. So as the clerk, you know that you've got all these electronic records floating around. I don't know. I'm not a clerk. I don't know how the clerk's office really works. But I assume that there's a whole bunch of electronic records. As the clerk, how are you going to make sure that there are policies in place that prevent the dissemination of those documents? Or is there anything specifically that you're going to do in the office?
The first thing that you do is you go on, you pull the statute and find out what the compliance requirements are. They will have requirements in place of exactly what you have to do for certain electronic documents as well as paper. So that's the first place that I'd start. Second place you start is, okay, what rules can now we put into place to ensure that we're handling them? And that's where that training, that education, and all of those things come into place so that you start making sure that you and your team are all ready to go to protect this personal identifiable information. Do the very best that you can. So it's a two-step process. One is to ensure that you're following those compliance standards that are already in place. But the second part is creating your own internal ones, but ones that don't violate the rights or the existing rules in place and don't then actually hurt our citizenry. But a big part of that is honestly making sure that your team is educated and trained so that they know the steps, they know what they're looking out for, and not just to protect what's already there in those records, but to also see red flags when people are coming in and asking questions and going over those kinds of things, that your people should be able to go, okay, that's just not right, and be able to come and talk about it with myself and other people to ensure to take that additional protection as well. So it's a two-part system. It's whatever's already in place, and then you put very strict things into place for education and knowledge for these things. And you also, I guess, third thing is stay up to date on what's hitting. These things are very much regional. People will come in and they'll hit like this region for elderly scams, romance scams. Once they get the money, they close up and they go to the next region. It's no different with property deeds, mortgage documents, or any of those things. So also staying current on what's going on and where people are hitting, I think, is very, very important to get out ahead of these things and help protect the community's records.
Well, and it's, the clerk's office is one of those interesting ones that for me, and I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack online about this, but
No.
for me, I don't think that it really matters all that much that it's a Republican or a Democrat in the clerk's office. I mean, the political considerations for the clerk, I don't really see that that's that big of an issue. The only thing I care about is there's somebody that's, honest and going to do the job, the best that they can, the way that it ought to be done. But I don't think that it's necessarily a political office. Do you have the same view, or?
I actually agree. I think our electeds, our sheriff, assessors, district court, county clerk, and coroner, I don't necessarily believe that those are political offices in and of themselves. We're all covered by statute and regulations and rules and requirements. Now, I'm sure people could come in and go, well,
the sheriff, I'm going to probably push back.
Well, I was just going to say, so I think the thing that people would cut for the clerk is they'd say, yeah, but elections, when it comes into place of stuff like SAVE Act and voter ID, but at the end of the day, those things are regulated by statute anyways. When it comes to the sheriff, I think he's the other one people that would possibly say, the way that they view law enforcement. ICE obviously is a huge thing in the last couple of years with those kinds of areas. So I think overall people can say these aren't really political offices, and I tend to agree. I do think those two little areas are a little bit different, but overall I think that the reality is nobody really cares as much about the county clerk. They care about stuff that what Ken's running for and my husband's running for, and those are the big political offices.
Okay, so one last question for you. I think in a lot of different places in the state, we have seen a lack of accountability in the clerk's office. I think that Sheridan is one of those. We published a couple of pieces on the Open Range Record about that. So what are you going to do to bring some accountability to the clerk's office? What specifically are you going to do?
I'm going to follow statute.
Okay.
I'm going to be available and open to our community. When they have questions, nobody should be coming into a public area where they elect us and walk out frustrated with zero answers. Doesn't mean that they can't be frustrated because it's something that we can't do, but they've got to be able to be assisted. And the other thing is we take part in third-party agencies and what I call just bureaucratic organizations. We spend tens of thousands of dollars to these organizations, taxpayer dollars, and these companies work directly against the rights and needs of our voters. And I think it's very important for county clerks to start looking at that and not just follow the status quo because everybody's done it. It's time for them to start pulling out of these powerful organizations that hurt our voters and start reclaiming our counties for our citizens.
All right, fair enough. All right, so if my viewers want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
My phone number, call me directly. I don't have any campaign numbers or anything because I want to talk to him directly. So it's 307-210-7013. They can email me. Christine is common spelling with a CH. Christine, the number 4, Sheridan County Clerk at yahoo.com. And I do have Facebook. It's just my personal. I didn't do any of the campaign stuff because I want to be available and I'm just me. So you can also find me on Facebook.
All right, Christine, thank you very much. Good
Thank
luck
you.
in your election. Let us know how it goes. Let's go.
Thank you for not kicking me out.
No, that was unprecedented. Only for Jimmy Skogard. All right, let's take a break and we'll finish up the program when we come back.
Headphones with earrings.
The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Well, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election.
Siberia,
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell.
Iceland, France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It is Open Line Friday, and if you want to give me a call, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Welcome back to the program, my friends. It's Friday. Man, this feels like it has been a really long week, and it's no longer than any of the others. Just kind of feels that way, I guess. So I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast that there was a marathon forum last night. First of all, forums are dumb. I honestly, you don't really learn anything. And there's no time to respond. But there was one candidate that, Ken, you may know her. And I know that this is going to come as a giant surprise.
I know of her.
She's a conservative. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's why she's running against me.
So go ahead and play the Melissa Butcher chamber soundbite for us. This is all of her qualifications. Listen to this. Maybe.
Glad you gave me this question, David. Thank you. Many of you may not know or may not remember, I served as the executive director of the Sheridan County Chamber of Commerce for about 3.5 years in the early 2000s. And I also served on the Strategic Planning Committee for Forward Sheridan, which at the time was our economic development organization. And then, of course, Mike and I, very early on, were the Tongue River Valley Business Committee. There were all 5 of
Mike,
us.
the Democrat.
I'm very excited that that's now one of the first new committees of the Chamber of Commerce in quite some time is the Tongue River Valley Business Community, and we consistently have about 30 people that come to that.
All right. So her qualifications are that she's been part of the Chamber of Commerce, which we lovingly refer to as the Chamber of Communists. Here's why. Allegedly, the Chamber of Commerce is supposed to be pro-business in that it's supposed to be a private organization in which businesses get together and they do stuff for business. But that's not how it works. The Chamber of Commerce in this community, and probably most others, they go to the city, they go to the county, and they take public money. And then they use that public money to do whatever they want for the businesses that they like. So it's really not a business organization. Rather, it's one with some kind of socialist tendencies to it. And you just heard Melissa Butcher say that her qualifications to run for office is she's part of the Chamber of Commerce. Now, it was a Chamber of Commerce forum, so I suppose maybe she was just playing to the crowd. But all of that does not qualify you as a conservative, nor does being a business owner necessarily qualify you as a conservative either. If you're in favor of all sorts of radically liberal ideas, like, for instance, last night she mentioned healthcare. When asked what are the biggest things that she's hearing on the campaign trail, Melissa Butcher said, well, it's healthcare. The government doesn't have any place in healthcare. And if you need any evidence of that, perhaps you should Google the term Obamacare, the so-called Affordable Care Act. If you want to know why healthcare is so expensive, it's because government is in the middle of it. And for a candidate to say that is the number one thing that she's hearing, kind of tells you that, well, one, she's not really been knocking on the right doors, I suppose, because most of the people in Senate District 21 have a very different view of that.
I don't hear much about healthcare in my door-to-dooring, but then
maybe you're not knocking on the right doors.
But as we all know, I do serve on a committee that is looking at what can we do about that. And the funny thing about it is, you're absolutely right. It's the Affordable Health Care Act that was kind of the last straw, and things have gone up exponentially since. And so
it was bad before that.
Yeah.
Too.
So then the answer is, well, government is screwing it up, so let's have more government. Or let's just turn it over entirely to government.
Well, government is always looking for the solution to their last fix.
Yeah, and the difficulty here is how do we extricate ourselves? It's not unlike a severe drug addiction. There's going to be some... Yeah.
This is why you and I work
Great minds think alike. You probably bribed me to say these
I probably did, yeah. I bought you off and purchased the entire legislature.
Yeah.
But I think that's absolutely on point. That the way that you extricate yourself from all of this unaffordable health care and all of it, is to turn off the spigot.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt.
Well, see, back to the drug analogy. Some drugs, you go cold turkey, you're going to die.
Yeah. I don't know that this is that one, but some people will probably die.
I think it is. I think we're that. So many people are so wholly dependent that we have to pull back gradually and allow the free market to begin to fill the gaps. If you just pull the plug right now.
Well, I don't even know that that's possible, Ken.
No, it's not.
You often tell me that when you look at the budget, it's like this giant Gordian knot. and you pull on one string and it tightens on the other end, and it unravels some other program. And I think a lot of that
Pickup
was,
sticks.
yeah, I mean, it's done intentionally. But you know what? Melissa Butcher has a solution. She does. In fact, she's a conservative. Just ask her. Play that soundbite.
So tonight you've heard a lot about policies, priorities, and individual
No, you really
issues. Those conversations definitely matter. But when you cast your vote, I don't think you'll simply be choosing between positions on a handful of bills. You'll be choosing the kind of conservative leadership you want representing Sheridan County.
Oh.
I believe conservative leadership is about more than opposing bad ideas. It's about exercising good judgment, solving real problems, protecting what makes Wyoming special, we heard a lot about that tonight, and creating the conditions for families, businesses, and communities to thrive. I don't believe it's government's job to do everything, but it is government's job to create the conditions for communities to thrive.
No, it's not really. It's government's job to handle the things that are enumerated to it by the Constitution, which is to just only handle those things that are absolutely essential. Roads, bridges, fire, police, not business.
There's another one of those meaningless, inane phrases in there just before she got that. And I don't remember exactly how she put it, but essentially it's the old, we all want to do what's best for Wyoming.
Uh-huh. Well, of course we do.
Okay.
Maybe not
if
Jimmy
you
Sogard,
believe
but...
that what's best for Wyoming is to expand Medicaid, we have definitely a different view there.
Uh-huh.
And that's one of the problems with forums is people get up and they say things like that sound good. Of course, we all want what's best for Wyoming. But nobody ever asks, okay, well, what do you mean by that? What is that?
Exactly.
What's the difference?
What? Give me specifics.
James Temple's opponent, Micah.
Oh, you got it.
I got it. She comes out and she says, healthcare that meets us where we are.
That doesn't mean anything, nor is it government's job.
Responsible economic development.
Oh, not government's job.
Honest and accountable government. That means transparency, but you can't use transparency because the Freedom Caucus uses that phrase. So basically she's trying to say the same thing. Community first, government second. What's community?
See?
You start breaking these things down, and an economy that rewards hard work. I would say that the tax break that the conservatives led the effort on, that is rewarding hard work. We're allowing you to keep more of your money rather than wasting it.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. Because see, the problem is that you throw out all of these meaningless phrases. Healthcare that meets us where we are. What does that mean? I mean, I don't even quite understand what goes into that. First of all, it's not government's job. We need to get the heck out of healthcare. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to say stuff on your mailer, I mean, the reason why you use these meaningless phrases is so you can twist them into whatever you want, right? They don't mean anything. And so when you make a decision, well, you can't be held accountable to it because, hey, I am meeting you where you're at. I mean, it's absolutely bizarre. I mean, I don't know. But there was a lot of that going on last night for 3.5 hours. Now, I didn't grab the soundbite for it for this morning, but the one pushback that we heard was Lori Bratton look at Susan Bigelow and say, now that was some interesting spin or something like that. So anyway, I mean, it's just meaningless drivel. So let's go ahead and take a call. And let's see here. Charlie, how you doing this morning, my friend? Charlie, are you with us? No, I do not have it muted. Oh, wait. No, I got to have the cord.
Technical
There we go.
difficulties.
How are you, Charlie? How you doing?
Pretty good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great, man. How is it?
Okay. Listen, I have a question. I don't understand why our folks don't start pointing out to these Medicare for All and Medicaid and all this stuff. candidates, look at the amount of Medicare and Medicaid fraud nationwide that is turning up, and they just seem to want to trust all this, and then nobody asks the question.
Well, I mean, I think the reason why is because they're all getting a tremendous amount of money, right? And so, for a long time, people in this state, like Nancy Case, they've wanted Medicaid expansion, and I think they know that there is a huge potential for fraud there. And I mean, that's just kind of go like the unspoken thing, right? Like we all know we're going to get loaded out of this thing. You there, Charlie? Okay, looks like we lost Charlie. So anyway, yeah, we lost him. Okay, so anyway, my friends, Charlie's exactly right. You know, none of these people that say we need to fix healthcare, we need Medicaid expansion, none of them ever really talk about, you know, the negative consequences to it, because I think that they know that it's rife for fraud.
Yeah, and the problem is that we don't really effectively check for fraud. You know, we had the Doge campaign a while back that started uncovering some of that, and even the administration backed off on that. Don't know what sorts of pressures they had. I looked into fraud, some of that, and basically what I did was learn enough to know the places that I want to go look.
Right.
So there's a lot more to be done. We haven't given up. But there are also federal regulations that block the states from checking for fraud. And I'll give you an example. They have a program for low-income seniors.
Okay.
But we're not allowed to means test anyone.
So you can't determine what low income is?
Yeah. So it's meaningless. It sounds good. Hey, we got low. You want to take help away from these poor old people, but millionaires and billionaires are riding the wagon.
Right. Right. All right. So I mean, there's a lot of that going on, and I'm just waiting for candidates to come out. And I mean, we've only got like a month left, but I'm just waiting for candidates to come out, and like happened a few times last night, like with our friend Christine, just call it out, man. You know, here's what this person did or didn't do. Here's where it harms you. And like we just need to call a spade and just be honest about these things. And, you know, too often in politics, it's just nebulous phrases that don't mean anything. And you just load up people's mailboxes hoping that they fall for your latest gag. But anyway, my friends, that pretty much does it for today's installment of the program. Thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with Jimmy Skogard and our, you know, you got to hold these people accountable. And I mean, I'll give him credit for coming on the show, but man, all right, have a good weekend. See you next week. I'm David Iverson. This is Cowboy State Politics.